Hello again everyone, welcome back to our EYFS activity day. Hope you've been having fun. Since I last spoke to you, I've met my friend Markus Moldewarp, and Markus is a mole. A Moldewarp is a very old-fashioned name for a mole. So Markus Moldewarp is really Markus Mole. And Markus is a very confident mole and he has lots of adventures and he's sure that he's able to solve lots of problems. So today I'm going to tell you what happened when he met some archaeologists who were looking for treasure. So Markus dug, scraped and scrabbled and popped up out of the soil. He stopped and looked because there in front of him was something very unusual. There was a square hole. Not seen anything like that before. He thought it might be important, so he thought he'd better investigate. When he looked across the field, he saw two people. They were archaeologists, and they looked very sad. Major Thompson had heard that his great-great-great-great-grandfather had buried treasure in the field, and he wanted to find that treasure because he thought it would make him very rich. So he had telephoned the archaeologists and asked them could they come and dig in his field and find the treasure. Professor McCann said she was sure they'd be able to find the treasure, and so they went along and they started digging. And they dug and they dug and they dug. And after 2 weeks, all they had managed to find were some old ring pulls from drink cans, some rusty old belt buckles, lots of animal bones and even more poo. There was lots of poo. Ooh! But they were sad because that was all they'd found. Suddenly, the boss archaeologist, Professor McCann, saw something glistening on the edge of a molehill. It was the molehill that Markus had just dug. She dashed over there and picked up the glistening item and found that it was a coin. It was an old coin. It was very, very rare. She went and spoke to Dr. Lennon, who was the other archaeologist, and she said, I think I found some of the treasure. Look, I found this coin. Dr. Lennon couldn't believe it. So then they stood there and they thought, what shall we do? Maybe the treasure is spread across the field. Just then, they heard a voice. I can help you. And they looked at each other. Where did that voice come from? Hello, down here, it was me, said Markus Moldewarp. And the archaeologist looked down, and sure enough, there was Markus Moldewarp saying, I can help you. Professor McCann looked at the mole and said, did you just speak to me? And Markus said, yes. Hello, how do you do? I am Markus Moldewarp, and I know that my friends and I can help you to find your treasure. Professor McCann wasn't convinced, but she thought, well, what can we do? We haven't got time to dig across the whole field. So she said, all right, Markus, we'll let you have a go. And Markus scrabbled back into the soil and went off to find all his mole friends. He gathered them all together. And then he said, right, moles, start digging. And they scraped and they scrabbled and they dug. And lots of molehills appeared in the field. And Professor McCann and Dr. Lennon went and checked every molehill. And soon they had lots of gold coins to put in their tray. And they found some very old beads that might be precious. And some very, very, very old buttons that might also be treasure. By the end of the afternoon, the moles had dug the whole field, and Professor McCann and Dr. Lennon had a tray full of treasure. Just then, Major Thompson drove along and he was shocked. What had happened to his field? What had those archaeologists done? And he roared loudly, what have you done to my field? And Professor McCann held out the tray of treasure and said, we found your treasure, Major Thompson. And suddenly the Major forgot to be angry about his field being dug up, because there before him were lots of rare gold coins, lots of buttons and lots of beans. And he knew that this was the treasure that his great-great-great-great-grandfather had buried. Instead of burying it in one place, he had scattered it all over the field. Thank you very much, archaeologists. You've done a wonderful job. And Professor McCann said, it wasn't all down to us, Major Thompson. We have a furry little friend called Markus Moldewarp that we need to help. And with that, Markus bowed and waved to his friends, scraped, scrabbled and dug and went back down into the soil to go back home for his tea. So I hope you enjoyed that story, everyone. That's the story of Markus, and he has lots of adventures. He's a very friendly mole. I hope you've enjoyed the story. Have a lovely time for the rest of the day. Bye.